Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, broadcasting on Channels Television live from Lagos. And here are some photos you sent into our Eyewitness portal. We begin with this photo sent in from WIMBIZ State. It shows this filling station selling a litre of fuel for 200 naira. Our Eyewitness reporter calls on the relevant authorities to end cases of fuel scarcity once and for all. And staying on the fuel scarcity issue, these photos were sent in from Lagos and Katsina states. They show people lining up in queues to buy fuel at filling stations. Our next photo was sent in from Ikeja, the Lagos state capital. It shows this overloaded federal road safety truck. Our Eyewitness reporter says that regulators should not be allowed to break the law. And this photo shows a broken bridge. It was sent in from Ibeti area in Oyo State. Our Eyewitness reporter calls on state authorities to fix it. And finally, this photo showing a falling electricity pole was sent in from Osogbo, the Osun state capital. Our Eyewitness reporter calls on relevant authorities to fix it before it drops on this particular rooftop. I want to thank you so much indeed for sending us. We ask that you keep them coming. Women in Management, Business and Public Service, WIMBIZ, have held an annual lecture in Lagos with the theme Crisis and Values Reclaiming Our Society. The event served a second purpose as well, making the 15th anniversary of WIMBIZ's existence. Our correspondent Mary Alale Yusuf reports.
From campaigns and initiatives of administrations past and current in Nigeria, it is clear that ethics are seen as an important component of nation building. This year, the Women in Management, Business and Public Service lecture focuses on this with the theme Crisis of Values, Reclaiming Our Society.
A lot of the challenges confronting us today stem from a national deterioration of values, such as respect, integrity, service, dignity in labor.
The keynote speaker, the Minister of Solid Minerals, Dr. Fayemi, explores the subject further, giving examples of things that obtain but must change.
Without making excuses for corrupt politicians who abuse their positions and break the public trust, they are no different from corrupt bank chief executives who embezzle depositors' funds, or the NGO executive who steals donor funds, or the academic who demands sexual favors from female students in exchange for positive marks. What all these depraved persons have in common is that they have integrity deficits.
He goes on to emphasize the importance of hard work, as in his words, opportunity must meet preparedness.
To renew our nation today, we must be reawakened to our duties as parents. There is no relationship that levies as much responsibility on us to be moral exemplars as that between us and our children.
It appears the meeting has had great impact on the audience.
I was most surprised at the amount of people who are wishing to see a societal change in Nigeria.
A society is a product of the individual values of the citizens of a society, which consequently sums up that Nigerian state as it is today is an aggregate of Nigerian values.
Our guest speaker, Dr. Fayemi, he's drawn parallels between what we are today and what we can be. And what I love about today is that he's reminded us that all of these things we have already.
The lecture, which was well received, has thrown a challenge to men to join women to bring up children as a start to reclaiming the society. And parents have been urged to allow boys and girls play and work as equals. Mary Alale Yusuf, Channels Television News.
Well, as promised, let's now take you back to our lead discussion and stories about the situation of the NNPC and its stance on the restructuring process it wants to go through. And to take a discussion on the suspended strike, I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by the president of NUPENG, Mr. Igwe Achese. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the news at 10. You announced earlier today that
my pleasure.
The oil workers' strike has been called off, and then we heard that at some point that status changed. Why did that happen?
There was no time the status of the reconciliation changed. What happened was a suspension of the strike action at the end of the deliberations, vis-a-vis dotting the I's of the needful in terms of the restructuring of the NNPC. That's what we did. So we didn't call off, but we suspended, believing that definitely the steps to be taken in terms of the reconciliations will be fruitful at the end of the day.
Now, one of the reasons you gave for this suspension and that the strike is that you indeed want the management of the NNPC to discontinue with the unbundling, in quotes, of the petroleum sector. But this exercise, as the Minister of Petroleum, Dr. Ibe Kachuku, puts it, will benefit the nation first. So why have you gone against this noble idea by the Minister?
Of course, it's our dream as workers and also as Nigerians in terms of talking about change that is expected to add value in the nation's economy. Of course, you and I know very well that today our nation's economy depends solely on oil derivations, and as such, the union and the civil society demands that change should come into the oil and gas sector, of which we are very much happy that that change is coming. And nobody is against that change, because we are talking about changing to have to make oil and gas to have economic values, to the nation. But what really happened was that the issues of the change, the structures, stakeholders were actually not given adequate consultation that is expected in order to know what are the kind of changes that is needed. In as much as we're concerned as a union, Nigeria is a member of the EITI and also international transparency, where we owe that transparency to Nigerians and transparency to the world in terms of what we're actually doing. We quite agree that ideas are being initiated, but the transparency of those ideas was part of the issues we had in terms of what really came up as a result of those actions. Note earlier that there was a restructuring that took place, restructuring of the PPMC, where managers were redeployed back into Abuja, deputy managers were deployed back into Abuja, and up to this moment, it is a difficult thing to say if they have a placement in the organization, and yet these individuals are still drawing their salaries as expected. And we expect that, look, the change that we're expecting should be all embracing changes that will impact in service by these individuals to change the NNPC attitude to work.
What do you do in a situation where you have put a 2 weeks suspension period to the government, and then what impact do you suppose that will have on the prices of petrol today?
Well, I've also watched in the media recently where DPRO and IPMAN is also having issues in terms of price of the pump price of petroleum product at the various filling stations. But I said clearly, if we say the environment is deregulated, then it means marketers who owns their private depots are expected to sell their products at their own prices of how they brought in their petroleum products into the country. My worry is that NNPC is regulator in terms of when you say the PPPPR is there, DPR is also there to check these issues. But if NNPC is an importer, they also know how to check those who buy from the NNPC facilities and to make sure that the prices that these individuals are selling from the outlets is at a control price. But if individuals buy their petroleum product from private depots, then you don't expect them, if the prices are higher than what NNPC is giving, that you now expect them to also sell at the same cost of regulated price of the NNPC environment. So these are the disparities in terms of these issues. But I'm sure before we went on this strike action, there had been a fuel scarcity situation in the country, and it doesn't create that it is the downtooling of the workers or withdrawal of services, as I can apply it to, is what has caused the current level of scarcity we're experiencing today. But having said that, the NNPC workers are very much committed in making sure we make sure we don't have scarcities at the various filling stations, outlets in the country. We're very much committed in terms of carrying out those services.
You said that you have suspended the strike for 2 weeks, meaning that you may at some point return to it. What are the conditions under which you may be forced to come back to the strike?
Well, we've given 2 weeks that these issues should be resolved. We're confident. I don't want to have any doubt in my mind that the Minister of State is not competent enough to drive these issues. He has shown that will, that political will of saying that within these 2 weeks we should be able to dot the I's, cross the T's, and put the cards on the table for everyone to see, and also criticize those restructuring and see how best we can move forward in making NNPC a world-class organization. And that is his idea, and we are very much, and that is the dream of Mr. President, in making NNPC a world-class organization, which as a union and as a civil society, we also buy into it. It is not a lump-sum issue that you want to drive for more than 2 weeks in terms of putting these things on the table for stakeholders to look at and criticize them. 2 weeks is enough to criticize whatever restructuring that has been put on ground. Honorable Minister of State clearly states that, look, I'm not unbundling, but I'm restructuring. It's a welcome idea. We dream for that, that restructuring for NNPC to be made a viable organization. One key issue, like I said, the restructuring should be a restructuring that must remove the political interference in the oil and gas sector. I'm talking about NNPC. If that restructuring is a key restructuring that we're dreaming of, that must remove political interference in terms of the operations of the NNPC and go back into the way NNPC need to be run by virtue of the act that established it, and also go ahead with the process of saying that, look, this restructuring is going to push forward the passage of the PIB, which is very key into what the oil and gas sector should look like in the country, and it can also stand to the test of time with the global competition that is on ground today. Mr.
Igwe Achese, the president of NUPENG, I want to thank you so much indeed for your time and your thoughts speaking to us here on the News at 10. And when the News at 10 returns, energy experts predict boom in oil and gas industry with the restructuring of the NNPC. That's some business news. Join us again.